What's going on, guys, and welcome back to our next episode. We are going to be hopping on with our fantasy related episode. And it's a little bit different than what we normally do our rankings list. Sorry, I guess I should say that you got your host Chase here, as along with Bryson. It's just going to be us two today. Our other two guys are currently busy, apparently, have better things to do.
I don't
Just
know what
kidding.
you could possibly be doing, but we'll let it slide.
Exactly. Yeah, just this one time though. Only one time.
Once, one and
Uh,
only.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, I'll let you take it away there, Bryson, then, because you're the guy that's going to lead this one. So I'll let you actually explain what we're doing, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so yeah, we were gonna do our continue with our positional rankings, but we decided that we would save that for when all four hosts can be here with you, just so we can get four different perspectives on that. So we figured for this episode, with it just being Chase and myself, we would do our individual top five sleepers for the upcoming fantasy season. This isn't
Keep an eye. Yeah.
necessarily, yeah, guys are keeping an eye on. It's not necessarily dynasty. This is really more so coming up in
Season to
this
season.
next season. Yeah, as we draft or even a keeper league, but just guys that we've kind of caught our eyes
Yep.
or that we think are going to have either bounce back seasons or breakout seasons or really just guys that aren't getting talked about.
Yep. Potentially guys that might not even get drafted. Maybe you'll find them on the free agents.
Yeah, they could honestly just get overlooked depending how deep your league is. If you're in a shallower league, you could easily probably find a few of these guys on the waiver wire. So
Yep.
yeah, so we'll just get right into it then. So for
Perfect.
me, I'll kick it off with my number five, and that is Spencer Turnbull of the Detroit Tigers. Um,
Okay.
he's not talked about a lot because he is coming off of Tommy John surgery, but all
Yep.
reports are saying that he is doing full baseball activity and that he's going to be good to go for the regular season.
Yep.
Um, look at his stats. So in 2019, he pitched 148 innings, which was his most in his career, and his ERA was at 4.6 with a WHIP of 1.4. Not ideal stats by any means. But we come to 2020, he's only pitches 56 innings that year because of injury as well, but he lowers the ERA to 3.97 and a
Yeah.
1.34 WHIP. And then we move ahead to 2021 before he gets injured and has to go have Tommy John surgery. He pitches 50 innings, then his ERA is down to 2.88 with a whip under one.
Yeah.
And so I think for him, if he's going to have a good season, which I think he can, it's going to really just come down to durability and endurance.
Yeah.
Seeing as he's
That's
only
fair.
pitched 148 innings in his career, that's his highest. Can he do that again? Can he even pitch more than that, like a regular starter's workload? And can he stay healthy? Those are the two big question marks. So he's definitely a high risk, high reward player, I believe. He's also on a not great team. So that's going to be a tough
Yeah.
part for him too.
Yeah. It's tough
But
to
I
get.
think,
Sorry, you go.
no, no, you can go ahead a second.
I was gonna say it's tough to get any sort of good ERA behind you with a team that's not producing, or a team that's not holding up defensively as well.
Yeah, so he's a pitcher that you're not gonna go to for wins necessarily because he could have a another year where he has an ERA under three, but if his team only scores two runs, you know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like it's not gonna be.
yeah,
But you're
not
gonna
great.
go for he's a guy that you could again you'll probably be able to either get super late or even on the waiver wire. And if you're your fifth or fourth starter in your rotation on your fantasy team, that's a guy that's worth taking a shot on.
No doubt, no doubt. And like you'll be able to get him low, and like if you get him low, uh, let's say you get even a couple games out of him and he pitches well and then he gets hurt. I mean, you just drop and pick him someone else up for him too. So like
Exactly. Yeah.
he's a
Even if
good,
he
definitely
struggles and
exactly.
you want to drop him, it's
Yeah,
really going to be no stress to you.
you're not going to lose out on your top 5 round picks picking him because nobody's going to pick him in the five. He's going to go late, so you're not going to waste a good pick getting him if you take him in the late rounds, and especially if he drops off the off the draft and into the waiver wire. If you get pick him off the waiver wire, you'll probably get something out of him.
Yeah, I said he's high risk, high reward, but actually realistically, he's more just like low risk, high reward because
Fair
there's
enough.
really
Fair
not
enough.
where you're picking him. It's really not that high of risk,
Yeah,
and it's either you're going to get the guy who pitched with a 2.8 ERA, or he's going to get hurt again, or he's going to struggle, and you just cut ties.
Yeah, you're like, all right, see you later. I'll pick someone else up with the waiver wire.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and you went five first, right? We're going five
Yeah, I
down to one.
started. Yeah, I figured we should go top to bottom.
Okay, and that's what I thought too.
Yeah,
So my guy at number five, and he's, I wouldn't say a sleeper pick, but he's a sleeper pick for who he is. And I went Rafael Devers
for sure.
because I think while he is a well-known player and everybody knows that he is a like a great fielder, I think overlooked for how good he is actually. He's 26 years old. He hit 295 last year, and he's a career hitter. Um, he averages 114 games per season, so like he's not getting hurt really. He's not missing that many games. He's only really taking days off here and there when he's tired, just to basically keep that body fresh. Um, and he's consistently hitting above average for RBIs every season, 113 in 2021, which is right near the top. So he's just another just great defender as well. I just don't think he gets near enough attention as he should for how good of a ball player is and how young he is too. Um, so
Yeah,
he's not like a Spencer Turnbull kind of guy, like where he could be like a really good season or just a bust. So he's gonna have every season's gonna be good, but just on base what his caliber is, he doesn't have enough hype around him.
yeah. I think for the hardcore fantasy players who are in like tons of dynasty leagues and stuff, I think he gets recognition in those circles. But I definitely agree in like the average fantasy baseball player who's in a couple redraft leagues or whatever, he definitely gets overlooked heavily, and he always kind of slips farther than he definitely should in those
Yeah,
leagues. And so if you're
exactly.
getting him, and he's up there with the best of the best. So if you're
Yeah,
getting a guy like that in the second or third round, you're laughing.
yeah, exactly. 100% agree. 100% agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, for my number four pick, it's another pitcher.
Nice.
It is Drew Rasmussen from the Rays. Um,
Oh,
so he is currently slotted in as their third starter behind McClanahan and Glasnow. Maybe he isn't necessarily the three. He could be maybe the four, but I don't think he's behind Eflin, even though they just signed Eflin. I think he's going to get mid rotation chances.
yeah,
Um, and for him, I was really impressed. I looked up his stats and stuff, and I saw that in his last 63 innings that he pitched last season, he had a 2.4 ERA, a .83 WHIP. So that is like
yeah.
elite WHIP
That's a stud.
numbers
Yeah,
in 63 innings is a fair amount of
yeah.
sample
Like
size.
it's
It's not like
a couple games. Like that's like 4 or 5 games. So
yeah, so it's not like it was just a small couple
one
of
or two
games or
games.
two.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, all in all, is even throughout the season, his numbers were good, but he just kind of
yeah,
really, really put it together at the end there. And his only
yeah.
downside, I think, is he's not a big K guy, so he's not going to get you a ton of strikeouts. He had, I
Right.
think, a 120-ish, I think, around there, and about 146 innings. So he's under a strikeout per inning, but he has
Yeah.
this,
So
and
you're
that
not.
low ERA and WHIP and he's on a good team.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think if he's your third or fourth starter in your rotation on your team, I think you'll be doing really well.
yeah. You'll be pretty happy with the performance out of that guy in your rotation.
Yeah, and he's another guy he's probably going to be drafted. His ADP is a little higher than Turnbull's, but
Yeah.
he's not going to be your first or second pitcher that you're going to be taking. He's
Right.
going to be your third or fourth.
You'll be able to get him late as well. I got for my number four a guy that I think he's definitely not going to be on the waiver wire either, but he's going to be lower on it, and I don't think he should be. I got Dansby Swanson. Um, I think he's 29 years old. He hits a career of 255, but I was looking at his stats, and with his season last year at 277 average, not ERA, he has gone since his rookie year. His almost all of his stats have gone up every year. And last year he played 162 games. This is his first full season, or first season playing all games in the season. He played 160 in 2021 and then 162 last year. And his average has gone up every year. His runs scored, his hits, home runs, RBIs, it has gone up every year. with last year hitting 25 home runs, and then I guess 2021 he hit 27. So it was a very slight dip from 2021. But I think he's got great defense to go along with the durability that he has, and the increase in every year in all his stats. I think has been heavily overlooked by a lot of people, and I think with that little bit of pop that he has too, with like 25 home runs, that's pretty decent out of your shortstop. So I think you're doing pretty well to get him in later rounds of a draft. I wouldn't say he's going anywhere near the start of any draft. He'd be like a backup or a third shortstop, I would say. So you should get him mid rounds, and I think you'd be pretty happy with his production.
Yeah, I think shortstop is a position that's pretty deep this year, and I think
that's also
personally, it. Yeah. I think it's great because that means that you can wait on it and get a guy like Dansby Swanson later, and you don't have to reach on some of the other guys. If you miss out on the top tier guys, you can kind of wait it out. And I think the other thing too that people are saying, with Dansby is obviously he's in a lineup downgrade now, but I also don't think it's as big of a downgrade as people are making out to be. Like I think the Cubs are getting. I don't think the Cubs are going to be great. Don't get me wrong. They're not going to be the Braves, but I think they're still going to be a respectable offense with the additions they've made. And he's going to be in a good spot in the lineup, hitting in a great position.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He'll move up the lineup.
So I think he's, again, I agree. A guy that if you miss out on, you wanted a top tier shortstop, but it didn't work out, you can just grab a guy like him later in the rounds.
Yeah.
You'll be laughing.
Grab a position that's not as deep and maybe cash in on Swanson later.
Yeah, snag a first baseman because after first baseman falls off the cliff, right? So it's like
they really do. There's really only 4 or 5 that you'd be worth mentioning, and then it's just mid.
So I'd rather grab a first baseman and grab Dansby later, if you ask me. But...
honestly, yeah.
Awesome.
I'd agree.
So my number 3 is Lourdes Gurriel Jr. Of the Arizona Diamondbacks now. And
Your boy now.
A homer pick. Yeah, this is totally unbiased, I swear. But last year for him in 450 at bats, he hit 290 with 132 hits. He did only have 5 home runs, which is quite a dip from his norm. But he did have 32 doubles. So he was still mashing.
He's hitting the wall a lot.
Yeah, and he had 52 RBIs. And I think the reason I have him as a sleeper is because I think people are going to look at his numbers from last year and say, well, they're not great, right? They're not kind of what you got used to with him. But he also was hitting in the back end of the Jays lineup. Whereas with the D-backs, he's definitely going to be hitting in a better spot in the lineup. I think we talked about this in the previous episode. Like I could see him being anywhere from the 2-hole to the 5-hole, right? Like he could be kind of anywhere.
Definitely.
And I think the D-backs, again, not a homer pick. I genuinely think they're a bit underrated as well. I think they're going to be better as an offense this year. So I think the biggest thing for him is just rediscovering that power. If he can get back to hitting 20-ish home runs this season, even if it hits 20, then I think he's going to be a great snag for you in the later rounds.
Yep. That's fair.
He's probably not going to hit the waiver wire just because of his name.
No, exactly.
He's definitely going to be someone you can get later.
Yeah. Yeah, some Jay Stan will take him for sure.
Yeah, they'll still be holding on.
Yeah, they'll be clinging to the past. All right. Well, I got another D back for number 3, and I think he proved himself last year, but really going up until last year, and even still now, not proven. Zach Gallen. He has been just a stud for his entire career, really, honestly. And nobody's talked about him probably because he's on the D-backs. Not really anybody to mention on that team. And if you're only seeing a guy like a pitcher once every 5 games, you're not seeing him that often, so you're not talking about him that often. He's 27 still, career 3.09 ERA. He posted his lowest ERA last year at 2.54. A 2022 record, like I said, on a team that in the past hasn't been that great. So a 22-22 record does not sound that great, but win-loss for pitchers are really so heavily factored on your team. And we said the same thing for Turnbull being on Detroit. It's a tough place to pitch in if your team is not putting up anything around you. And Gallen's kind of had that same struggle with his team around him. Sorry, Bryson, not being able to put stuff up around him.
No, it's fair.
Yeah, he pitched 180, and I guess I forgot to mention he pitched 184 innings last year, which is the most he's ever pitched in his career. And he also pitched the lowest ERA in his career. So not only did he pitch the most amount of innings, he pitched the best he has in his career as well. And he also hits that above average K rate with 192 Ks last season. So he's not like elite Ks guy, but he's definitely above average putting up strikeouts. So I don't see him getting any worse this year, especially with how much better the D-backs have gotten. The guys that they brought in, I only see Gallen getting better from here. I don't think you'll get him low. I think there are a decent amount of people that have realized how good he is actually. But some leagues, maybe the more average run-of-the-mill leagues, will overlook him for sure. So you could definitely get him I would consider him an ace later than you would get other aces.
Yeah, I agree. I think one thing I thought too, I've been thinking a lot about is in fantasy sports, I truly believe that leagues should start looking at moving from wins for a pitcher stat, or if you're in a points league, to quality starts. Because I think that way more shows that, like it gives pitchers like a guy like Zach Gallen, who's on a bad team, who can pitch, 6 to 7 amazing innings, and his bullpen comes in and just absolutely blows it. And then he takes, he loses the win that he very much deserved. So I think with quality starts, it speaks a lot more to the actual pitcher themselves, not the team. So that's a different thing. But yeah, with Gallen, I think he's coming into his prime, right? Like you say, he's 27. He's only getting better. And I think that he's obviously a clear-cut ace in Arizona.
For sure.
And he's like you said, he's a guy who you're probably not going to get like crazy late, but he's still a guy who, even just because where he plays, he might slip a bit farther than he should. Unless you're in a league with a lot of sharp guys, he may kind of fall through the cracks in an average league as well. And depending on the depth of the league and how many teams and stuff, you might be able to get him in a good position. But he's definitely a target.
Yeah, you should definitely be looking after getting him.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's no bias. It's just
just cold hard facts.
Just the facts, yeah. So for my number 2 here, no, absolutely zero printer.
None.
So yeah, for me, my number 2 is a guy on probably the worst team in MLB, Seth Brown of the Oakland A's.
Nice.
And he is just he had 500 at bats last year, and he only hit 230. So that's not ideal. That's not an average that really gets you excited. But what I like about Seth Brown is that he's hit 25 home runs, 26 doubles, 73 RBIs, and he did steal 11 bags. So I don't know if the 11 steals is something that is going to repeat itself. I honestly didn't watch any A's baseball, so I really don't know if that's something he's going to do again. But even if he gives you 6 to 8 steals,
honestly,
you'll take that.
You will.
And with that, if he gets the average even up to 250, right? If you can get up to 250 and he gives you that 25 home runs and 70 RBIs for a guy that, again, you're going to be getting in late rounds because nobody wants anything
100%
to do with the A's.
Late rounds. Yeah. You might even get him waiver wire.
In a shallow league, he's definitely probably going to be on the waiver wire.
Yeah. A little more
even
deeper you get.
Not so shallow leagues, but again, if it's just like an average kind of guys who are just fantasy baseball guys who aren't super in depth with things, I think he could be a waiver wire guy for sure. Or he gets off to a slow start, someone's probably going to drop him. He's one of those guys who's again, very low risk but high reward. Especially if you're in the early rounds, you kind of missed out on getting some power guys and some guys with some pop in their bat. If he can't give you, he can't give you 25 homers again, and he gives you 18 to 20, where you're drafting him, I think that's still good value. So I think he's a guy that I'm definitely looking to target in the later rounds of my drafts.
Yeah, that's for sure, 100%. I agree with that. It's just unfortunate he's with the A's.
Yeah, it's just bad team and that bad average. It's just you kind of hope that those two things can kind of
fix
not
itself.
drag him down too much.
Yeah, exactly. All right. At number 2 that I'm personally really high on, I talk about him personally a lot. I got Nico Harner. Just the only unfortunate thing is his injuries. He's got terrible injury record. He's 25, so he's really young still. 281 average last year, sitting at a career 277. He's good defensively, but played 4 years in the league, and he's averaging 61 games a season. So it's not great. And he's only averaging 61 games a season because he hit 127 games last season. So eliminate 2022, and he's averaging like 30 games a season. Just unfortunate with injuries is the only thing. But if he can stay healthy, which he did last year for the most part, you're looking at a pretty good middle infielder, because I think he should get both shortstop and second eligibility, although he may not get that shortstop this year anymore with Dansby. So you'll probably be looking primarily second base. So he might just have that second base eligibility. But you're looking at a good average hitter, or like he's going to hit high 200s, might touch 300s for average. Other than that, he doesn't steal a ton of bases. He doesn't have a ton of pop, but he's going to put the ball or the bat on the ball. So I personally really like him. I'm high on him, and I don't think anybody else really is, but I like him. So you could definitely target him later in rounds. He's just that injury risk is the only thing that has been unfortunate for him.
Yeah, I think too, like, fading injuries is something I tend to do with older players more so.
Yeah.
Like, I think with his age, it doesn't scare me quite as much because,
Yeah,
again, like you
he'll
said,
bounce back.
last year he was able to get 127 games, right? So I honestly, going forward, unless I really have no reason to worry about him getting hurt until it actually happens.
Yeah.
Because he did have a good amount of games in last year, and so I think his team around him got a little bit better.
Yeah.
Right. They added Dansby, they added Mancini, they added a couple bats in there that can kind of help him because he's definitely an on-base guy.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So
yeah, he gets on base for you.
He can get you some runs there with some better bats behind him.
Exactly. With some better bats behind him, they're going to score him. So he'll get a couple more. He'll get a little padding for the run scored stat. So.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just, I think, like you said, he's a name that kind of just isn't talked about a lot.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It's kind of the running theme is just guys that are kind of maybe not on the top tier teams.
They don't get any.
Doesn't mean that they can't help your fantasy team.
Exactly.
Fantasy isn't all about real life. So
no media in fantasy.
Yeah, it's one of the things you have to learn when you start playing fantasy. Any fantasy sport is that.
Oh yeah.
It's not always necessarily the guys in real life are the best. Aren't always necessarily the best in fantasy. So.
Yeah, exactly. The fan favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so it was down to our top guys, and my number one sleeper is he's probably the least like sleeperish guy that I have on my list, which is kind of funny because I have my number one, but I think is gonna really break out this year, and that's George Kirby of the Seattle Mariners. And this isn't biased because I just got him from Tops. I just had him on my mind, and I was like, I feel like he's not necessarily a sleeper if you're a big dynasty guy or you're bringing prospects you've known about George Kirby for a long time, and so I don't think that's the league where you're gonna really count him as a sleeper. But I think like I said, and this is kind of looking at just this upcoming season in a redraft league or in maybe a shallow keeper league. He's a guy I think is not going to be a top tier name. He's going to be kind of farther down your list. But I think he's a guy that you should be targeting. Yeah, last year in his rookie season, so this was his first year in the majors. So it wasn't like kind of like where it's like, oh, he pitched half the season and then last year was like his first taste of the majors, and he pitched 130 innings with a 3.39 ERA and a 1.2 WHIP with 133 strikeouts. So again, he's a guy who's over a strikeout per inning, so he's going to get you Ks. His ERA, I think, is a little bit higher than what his WHIP indicates at 1.2. But even at 3.39, you'll take that under 4.
Especially for your pitcher.
for a pitcher for his rookie year, like that is
Yeah,
you'll take that
you're
all day.
laughing at that.
So I think he's only going to get better. He's slotted in as the Mariners' fourth pitcher right now in the rotation behind.
Yeah,
He's got Castillo, Robbie Ray, and I'm blanking now. Who do they have in front of him?
I don't even know who they have.
I had this memorized.
Oh, 2 years ago, came in with Kelenic, right?
I think. I don't know. Is it Marco Gonzalez they have in front of him? I don't know. Or is he their fifth guy? Oh, Robbie Ray. That's the.
No, you said Robbie Ray.
Oh, right.
Who's their guy that came in with Kelenic? He had early good year last year, actually. Why can't I think of his name? Gonna do a quick Google. Why can't I have a lot of blank space here? White noise, awkward silence.
Wait, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. I thought I liked that.
Gilbert.
Yeah, Logan Gilbert. Yeah. So, yeah, that's what it's blank on.
Is that
so he's
not who of Logan Gilbert?
Yeah. So yeah, I had him on my team too. How did I forget? Yeah, he's slotted in behind those three guys, and honestly, like Robbie Ray didn't have the greatest year last year. I think he's gonna have a bit better year this year, but I can easily see Kirby becoming that number 2, number 3.
Yeah. It's
and maybe not even this season, but like next season, I think
for sure.
I think he's on the way up. And so again, he's right now. You're probably getting him at you're paying like SP3, maybe 4 price for him in drafts. But I think he could by the end of the year be a borderline second starter for your team.
I think so too, especially with like you said, Robbie Ray potentially not having as great a year. Well, better than last year, but still not being like what he was with Toronto. And Castillo, I don't think is a replicable year of last year. So with those top 2 guys being pretty questionable with question marks around them, I think he has a lot of potential to move up that rotation if he can just literally continue what he did last year. Doesn't even have to be even a whole lot better. If he continues doing what he's doing, like he'll have no issues hopping up that rotation.
Yeah, I guess the only thing you could say that would be negative for him is just 130 innings isn't a lot. What does he look like once he gets up to 150, 160 innings? Does he start to wear down a bit because you haven't really seen what he's been able to do? So that's the only thing that maybe you could say, well, I don't know. I kind of have to see it before I buy in, and that's totally fair. But again, I think for me in drafts, I'm always looking for high ceiling.
Yeah, and you got to, especially if it's a keeper league like ours, like our dynasty league. Like you can't be looking for the 100 games from now as your end of the end of the road kind of situation. Like you got to be looking for 5 years from now kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think at the price that you're going to pay to get them, I think you're at a great price to get them. You're not paying a whole heck of a lot, especially at SP4. Like
what you're paying for them, I think you're good. If you get what you got last year, you'll still be happy.
It gets pretty thin for pitchers pretty quick. So like out of the SP2, like after that, you're dropping off pretty fast. So you really won't be hurting.
I think especially if you're someone who maybe waited on pitching, you took a few hitters in your first few rounds, I think he's a good target for you.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, at my number 1 then, I have Jeff McNeil. And I think year in and year out, he just doesn't get what he deserves. And I feel like that's kind of been my whole list right now is guys that have played well and just don't get any attention. And I think Jeff McNeil, I had him at my top just because he just kind of is that guy. Like he's got a career 307. He's 29 years old. He's played for 7 seasons. 7 seasons with a career average of 307. Like that's consistency right there. And I don't understand how he's not talked about more. Probably something to do with playing on the Mets, but like I don't think the fully because the Mets get a decent amount of media coverage. So, but last year hit 326. Just yeah, 5 years in the league, averaging 103 games per season. So like, it's not like he's not playing games per season either. Like he's averaging over 100 games a season. So yeah, I just don't think he gets any love that he deserves because he definitely hits for a lot of contact all the time. So
Yeah.
definitely in fantasy, you're not really super worried about the defensive part of it. So looking for an
Yeah.
offensive guy that you're gonna get probably not late, but like later than he probably should. He's a guy that you want to be looking for.
Yeah, I think the thing with him is it's just like, and it's the same with like guys like Nico Horner even too. Is like the guys who hit for a good average just aren't. They're not the sexy names, right? Like everyone
Exactly.
loves the guys who are hitting 40
500
bombs,
plus bombs, yeah.
right? So
500
it's
foot
like
bombs.
those guys who are average guys who are good contact guys, but don't necessarily hit a ton of home runs. Always just
Yeah,
seem to just fly under the radar. Nobody really talks about them, but it's like, especially
exactly.
if you're in a fantasy league that's like categories and average is one
Oh,
of your is your
100%.
counting stats. These guys
Yeah,
are super valuable, right?
yeah,
Like,
they're locking that stat in for you.
yeah,
That
if you're playing
category.
in average, if you're looking for like OPS, like
Yeah,
guys who just get on base, like,
you're
or
locking
there's
those in.
OBP, like OBP
Yeah,
leagues, these guys are
studs.
studs, right? So it's
Yeah,
like, I think it's just the fact that they're not hitting 30, 35 bombs that they just kind of,
yeah.
especially for him, like being in New York, it's definitely not that he's not on a good team or that he's not in a good media city, but it's just like everyone talks about Pete Alonso, right? Because it's Big
Yeah,
Meat Pete. He hits dingers, like you know what I mean? Like, so
exactly.
guys like,
That's what they come to watch.
yeah, that's what people want to see. So that's why he gets the most hype.
Exactly. And then you had DeGrom around him as well, so people come to see DeGrom, and there's just other guys you're watching in New York.
And there's just casually Jeff McNeil just cranking it 300
Yep, just
average his
getting
whole
on base
career.
every
Like,
at bat, always chilling on
yeah,
the bases.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, so
yeah,
yeah, I agree. I think he's definitely a guy that's a sleeper if I've ever heard one.
yeah. That's why I had him at my number one. Him and he him and Horner are two guys I'm high on, although I'd be higher on McNeil, just because Horner hasn't played as much, has a little injuries, but McNeil just uh, he's got kind of everything you want for a contact hitter.
Yeah, he's just that Mr. Consistency that nobody seems to notice.
Honestly. All
All
right,
right,
well,
well, I
that's
think
our
that's it.
list. Hope you guys all listen or enjoyed listening to our sleeper list. Hope this
Yeah,
helps
you
you out
all
in your
better listen.
exactly. Pick these guys. Take them. Take the advice we're giving to you. It's free of
Yeah,
charge. I promise.
literally.
Um,
I did a
yeah,
ton of research, so I can.
make my time worth it.
Turnbull's running the AL Cy Young this year.
You heard it
Told
here
me.
first. Write it down. All right, that's it from us. We'll see you guys in the next one.
See ya.